Maybe we can just jump right in. We have so many questions about so many different parts of this business. You guys are radically transparent. You're remote only. There's a lot of really interesting stuff for us to dig into. I'm going to open it up. GB folks, what questions do you have?
You guys have like a super interesting culture, and beyond your remote, just obviously the way that you do things and codify everything. When you're hiring, do you actively select for that culture? Like, do you have active steps to sort of test fitness for the culture that you have, or is it more through the hiring process as they meet people? Does that happen organically?
Remote is not a value of us, and I think that's super important. Remote is kind of, it's a way of doing things. If I'm hiring an executive, very rarely have they worked remote, and that's fine. We can do that. We do hire for our values, and then the obvious one from outside is transparency, but the toughest value is iteration. And for GitLab, that means scoping down the work so that you can, something so small, you can get it out the door quickly. You can, after that, like, reassess what your next step is going to be. With the remote, like, succinct and clear communication is more important than it otherwise would be. And some other things, like remote kind of forces you to do things you should be doing anyway, but make it more essential that you nail that. We're talking about interviewing. That's not the only point in which we kind of reinforce our values. I'm a bit proud that we now have 17 documented ways in which we reinforce our values. And I think a lot of other companies spend a lot of time on defining their values, but not a lot of time making processes to reinforce them.
One of the things that's talked about, or used to be talked about a lot in our board meetings, was the trade-off between openness and exposing your plans to the competition. And I think Sid is quite unique. He's sort of famous in our board meetings for saying that he'd rather expose all of our plans and make sure that everyone within the organization is fully coordinated than be very secretive and have people miscommunicate internally. Do you mind talking this group through some of the board meeting best practices that you've arrived on, just at a high level for this team? Sid sends out the deck several days ahead of time, every time, which, as you know, is a best practice. We all digest it. We fill out a Google Doc with our questions. His team answers those questions in real time. So like if I'm filling it in at midnight or 2 in the morning, my time, I don't think it's an expectation by Sid, but it's just kind of who his team is. In real time, they'll be updating my questions with answers. In the board meeting, Sid, or before the board meeting, Sid has released a video of his CEO update. It's like a public company CEO's update. He releases a written doc with some of his highlights. And then in our board meeting, we have strategic conversations only, not updates. And they're really interesting strategic conversations. So I guess, Sid, how did you get to those best practices? And what drove us to where we are today, which I think is a great process.
Sending out the deck in advance, like, just makes sense. Just
right.
And we just have a cutoff date, and we send out the deck at that time. And if you're not ready, you're not ready. The video update, we start doing that. We do it with other meetings because people couldn't resist presenting in meetings. And now the policy is, if you start presenting in meetings, like, you'll get cut off. It'd be like, great that you like presenting. Send a video next time, because this is synchronous time. It's super hard to get everyone online at the same time. There's other commitments that people have in their personal lives that they might have to balance. So don't use that for something that could have been asynchronous. Also, you can talk only this fast. And if you do a video, I can read the subtitles or speed it up or watch it at a time. That's more convenient for me. About those questions, yes, we answer them. I hope that people don't have a ping open to like immediately answer the questions. I hope that people take time off and use the flexibility of remote to do that. But we do try to answer them upfront, just so, hey, we got 72 hours, we got some time. Like it would be very strange if the only time you checked for questions was at the board meeting itself. So we do try to answer as much as we can async. And if the same question comes up a couple of times, we discuss it in the board meeting to get more color, more context, get more people involved. But we try to have 3 big questions that we ask the board members during the meeting to make sure that we focus on something that like we really need help with, and get as much as the operational updates out of the way. Also, we've been getting better at pre-briefing the board members, so the permanent board members will get a pre-briefing from the team so that they can ask their questions and then don't have to take up synchronous time. And we are respectful of the time. We use the time together to have the strategic things that are complex and requires everyone's attention.
The culture of open source is increasingly influencing the culture of the way that we run companies, like fully distributed, totally transparent. I wonder if you could just touch on where you think this goes in the next couple years. Like, yeah, it's a pretty open-ended question, but I think you all have been so on the frontier with this. Like, you know, one example, you see Elon Musk is getting rid of corporate communications and PR, sort of because I guess he doesn't want anything to be manipulated or massaged. Just what it's a particularly unique example, but where do you think this goes in the next couple of years? Are there investments you're continuing to make in the remote and transparent culture that you're building?
Our mission is everyone can contribute. And I think that really gels well with kind of that open source aspect. Because things are transparent, people have an opportunity to opine. And in GitLab, that means everyone can make a proposal. Everyone can send a merge request. Even you, like if you look at one of these pages and you see anything from a typo to just like a big philosophical difference that you have, you can send out a proposal to change it. The downside of that might be that you get so many voices in the room that you cannot make progress anymore. I think a startup is defined by its speed of decision making. So we're very big on DRIs, directly responsible individuals. And as a company, we want to be kind of combine the best of consensus organizations and hierarchical organizations. Before a decision is made, everyone can chime in. Decisions fly above the radar. They are actively spread. All the content, all the relevant context is there, and everyone can voice their opinion, but more importantly, contribute data like I've seen this, I've seen that. But the decision is made by the person who has to do the work, and they don't have to convince anybody. They don't have to build consensus. They can just do it. They don't owe anybody an explanation. And that's counterintuitive. Most companies go to either side. We try to combine both, but in different stages of the process. And I think that's essential to keep the speed of decision making up.